Welcome to another episode of ComSpeak. Our guest on this episode is Nikhil Khanna. Nikhil Khanna is the executive chairman of AVNV. AVNV in India comprises two firms, AVNV, the public relations firm, and Chase India, the public affairs arm. Nikhil is the founder of the group, and the company is set up many years ago. Thank you, Nikhil, for joining us.
Thank you.
We'll start off by asking you about how you got into public relations. Tell us the backstory of what went into your getting into the world of public relations.
Well, to go back very quickly, I studied my chartered accountancy, or at least I tried to study, and I failed at it miserably. So I worked in advertising for a while, and then in 1991, when the Tatas were setting up good relations, I joined that. I was there for about 10 years. And then I decided to get into the content space and started a company called Friday Content Solutions. And that had a lot of potential, but it was much before its time. And therefore that collapsed in about 2 years. And anything that could go wrong with it, i.e. partners fighting with each other, running out of money, having to let people go, I had to do all that. But, that was an abject lesson on how not to run a company. And when that finished, I said, I don't know why I'm wasting my time. I should just go back into PR. And I started AVN Media in I think it was about 2004. And I literally started off by driving my broken down Maruti 800 and doing restaurant promotions at Ambawata. I still meet the girls who gave me the first job. And whenever I meet them in a hotel lobby or at a dinner, I point to the car I'm driving and I said, look, that's the car you bought me.
Right. Thank you. What made you name the company AVN Media? Tell us the history behind the naming of it as AVN Media.
I was always interested in aviation since I was a child. When I was 13 years old, I was keen on going to the Paris Air Show. And of course, I couldn't because my parents couldn't afford it. So for me to actually be there some 15 years later, about 17 years later, was a dream come true. So I think it was a bit of a no-brainer. I started off by calling it AVN Media immediately. I came on, a lot of people joked with me and said, oh, AVN flew. I said, nah, well, AVN will fly. And, hopefully it did fly.
Do you want to share with us a couple of your early clients that you worked on that were big brands, big names in the field of aviation and in the world of flying?
Well, I think the first thing to say is who was my first client. It was a company called Sona Steering, and it was run by a pioneering man called Dr. Surinder Kapoor, and they were something as unglamorous as auto components. But he was the one who gave me the first break, and one can never thank him from that. And then, I used to work with Airbus. They were the clients I had good relations, my previous company. And when they heard I had started off on my own, they immediately gave me the work. They just made me fly down. I was used to flying in business class. I flew down on a broken down economy seat because I didn't have any money, and stayed in a hostel, and they were kind enough to give me the business. So really, that's where the whole aviation thing started from. Then it went on to IATA, it went on to various airlines, and then concomitant to that is some of the larger companies in the defense business.
Interesting. Thanks for that. And I'll come back to the more recent history of AVN and AVNV. But before that, about some of the important pillars and support that you've had at AVN and AVNV. Are people who are still around? If you want to just share about how you got these people, Neha, Manas, and then later Nitin, how they came into your fold. If you want to just throw light on that, that will help people watching this get a little bit of more understanding of the company you created 17 years ago.
Well, clearly I was very, very lucky. And, you can't thank you can't thank a greater force or your ability to also surround yourself with people who are smarter than you. And, we function out of a very, very small apartment near Khan Market. And Neha and Manas were my first colleagues. And the transformation they've had is just absolutely extraordinary. Their journey has been an amazing one. Then Nitin and I met several times. We met in Delhi. We met in very, very cheap restaurants in London. We'd always promised we'd go to an expensive restaurant, but we'd always go to a cheap one. And we clicked, He's the sort of yin to my yang. And, sometimes you need people who see the poor business side of it, and then you see other people who also see the more creative side of it. So it worked, and then backed up by the amazing Neha Mehrotra and the amazing Manish Kalita. We decided taking it to other heights, and then you had people like Sharmishta joining us, and her contribution and Palin's contribution in various parts in social media and in social impact. All these things came together very nicely. So you must have the ability to choose people who are smarter than you, because you can only learn from them. I think.
True.
Yeah.
And I think we did a smart thing. We Communications and the team sitting in Seattle chose smartly to partner with you all and make you part of their fold 4 years back. Tell us more about that. How did that come about? How has their collaboration been? And what is the big thing that Avian has benefited and we has benefited from this collaboration with each other?
I think there was a point where we were being courted, and we were also courting a whole lot of companies abroad. We met a couple of them. For some of them, our margins were not high enough, and for the others, I think it was too impersonal as far as Nitin and I were concerned. But the good thing that we did manage to do was we managed to get some very expensive dinners out of them. So I'm actually personally very happy with that. We chose the oldest restaurant in London, and I just run my finger down the menu, and whatever was the most expensive thing, I ordered that. But on a serious note, we liked very much the culture that WE had. It's very similar to ours. We're like a family. There's a lot of empathy. They're West Coast. They're liberals. We are liberals in one way or the other. And, Silicon Valley is not very far off. And they're very good people. At the end of the day, that's what appealed to us the most. They had vision and they're good people. And that is really what brought us together. There's a fair amount of going back and forth, as happens. We took the Red Eye to Seattle. It's a very nice city. There's lots of nice music. There's fantastic food. But most importantly, Goa, Melissa Wagner's values, Castle's values, Corey's values. These are the things that appeal to us a lot. So it wasn't very difficult to get together with them.
Right. No, thanks for sharing that, because there are very few Indian firms that have had the fortune to partner with global firms, and yours is one of them. And therefore, I thought it's important to ask this question so young people, others watching this show now and in the future, will get a sense and glimpse of why global firms partner with firms in countries like ours and build together. I'm moving now from. Sorry, go on.
No, I think they like to expand their footprint, but they want to do it with the right team.
Absolutely.
They want with a team they can depend on, and a team who they can trust, and hopefully we were that team.
I think so too. So now moving from asking you a few questions about the history and the origins of Avian and Avian V to talking of the core of what PR practitioners do, which is campaigns largely. And the idea behind these next couple of questions is again aimed at people of all ages, especially younger people who sometimes don't see inspirational work. They don't come across inspirational work because no one talks about it. And therefore, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions on campaigns. The first question is, you would have worked over your last 20, 25, 30 years of working on numerous campaigns, hundreds and maybe 1,000 campaigns. But I'm sure there'll be a few that are dear to you. One maybe that stands out for you as a campaign that you're really proud of on any client, current or past. I would like you to shed some light on one campaign that stands out for you that you worked on and still remain proud of until this day.
We've done some very good work, and I'm very proud of the teams over here. And some superb examples, which I don't want to delve too much into because they're also client confidentialities here. But I'm personally also very proud with Airbus, because I started there as a complete fledgling. It was very, very difficult at the beginning because they started with the Bangalore accident, if you remember, where the fleet was completely grounded. It was very political. It handed a terrible, terrible battle to Indian Airlines. So we handled all that. Then there were all the acquisitions in the 90s, which were extremely controversial. many forces involved, etc. So just to work around the media around that was not an easy thing. Then, of course, came the 2000s, where things had settled down quite a lot, and that became relatively easier because they had found a very large um, client base in Indigo, in Go, etc. So things had taken off by then, and there weren't any controversial buys like Air India and Indian Airlines, which are government funds. So I think to take it from a quite a hysterical time, highly, very heated, to bring it down to the level of a company that is highly responsible, highly evolved, highly technical, and has bought such amazing products for passengers all around the world. I think that was a campaign I was particularly proud of.
So thanks for sharing that about your big client for many years, Airbus, and the campaign around the crisis. Thanks for that. My next question to you is on one campaign that you wish you had a chance to work on. And a lot of PR leaders sometimes feel that, wow, I wish I was on that campaign. I would have done differently. I would have done it in a better way. So tell us one campaign like that in any sphere, in India or overseas, that you wish you had worked on.
I mean, really, I think a game-changing campaign would have been the one for Obama, for President Obama, because here was something that was so unique. America was getting its first Black American president, and it's a unique time in history. And I mean, one might turn around and say, well, how does it matter for India? I'll tell you why it matters, because as democracies, to see a person come up from practically nowhere and reach the highest office in the land, or the most powerful office on earth, and then to do it with such clarity, with such humanity, with such ethics, that would have been an excellent campaign to work on, I'd imagine. I had the good fortune to meet Mr. Obama when he came to the Leadership Summit, and he's a very impressive man. He's very cool. He's too cool for school, some people would say. But you could see, the man completely gets it. And if you read up more about his campaign, you'll see how so many younger people were involved in it. So I think there's a lesson out there for a lot of people watching this, that you should aspire to working with brands, with people who have such empathy, such values, and such ethics. Because, in the end, it's the reputation that matters. It's the reputation that will do more business. Shortcuts won't.
So thanks, Nikhil, for telling us about this entire Obama inspiration and the wish you had if you could work on his campaign. I'm sure you have many years ahead of you, and there could be other people similar to Obama that you could work on in India or anywhere else in the world. I'm now going to move from this conversation to share a quick anecdote that Nikhil and I experienced together. This is for our viewers a few years ago. As Nikhil mentioned, Obama was in India for the HT Summit in 2017 or 18. And I remember the rush to enter that venue. Even people who had passes were struggling to enter. And I still remember, through some luck, Nikhil and I both managed to enter that Hyatt Regency banquet hall. And we happened to sit next to each other and listen to Obama for an entire 1 hour. It was completely mesmerizing and inspiring. For those of you who have never seen that, you should check out this online and check the HT Summit Barack Obama conversation, which is outstanding and completely fantastic. I think Nikhil has memories of that as well.
Yes, indeed.
Yes. I'm going to move away from talking of campaigns and work to something that is more dear to you, something more personal. I want to ask you about your childhood and your growing up years. Tell us about where you grew up, what your childhood was like, and how did your younger days inspire you to do the things you did in your adult life?
I was born and bred in Delhi. I was sent off to boarding school when I was 5 years old. So you can imagine how challenging that was. But you know what? That's okay. You learn to adapt, and you pull up your socks and you move on. I don't believe in whinging and whining. And I strongly advise anyone who's watching this program, just move on, pull up your socks and stop feeling sorry for yourself. But I had some nice times in boarding school, and I came back, went to the Air Force School, which I think is possibly the best thing that could ever happen to me. I love forces, by the way. I think they're the most innovative, they're fearless. And I think that also comes because they're so adaptable. So here's another lesson I learned in the Air Force School. And there were kids from the Air Force, Army, Navy, but they've been posted all over the place. They know how to conduct themselves. They are confident. And if after you read this, you do a quick Google search on famous kids of Army, Air Force, and Navy, you'll find so many of them are complete go-getters. Nothing daunts them at all. So, that was a great lesson over there. Then I did college over here in SRCC and then plunged straight into work. Delhi, of course, was a very different city in those days. It was more intimate, lesser people. But every generation has their part, their generation. Now, the city has different aspects to it, and
Right.
it is my most beloved city. And I've learned many, many lessons here because it works on many levels. There's diplomatic, there's bureaucratic, there's government, there's old money, there's new money, there's academia, there's the arts and the letters. So, you can choose what you like, or you can make a subset of all of them and pick and choose what you find most interesting. It's a great city.
Thanks. That's very enriching to hear. Tell us, how do you unwind, or what do you do for leisure?
Well, I read a lot and I write a lot. I'm now got so many books in my house that I don't know quite what to do. I used to have the columns in the Times of India and the Hindustan Times, but I don't really get time these days. So for leisure, you can say boring things like I like to travel. Everyone likes to travel, but I'm a great swimmer and I like to hike also. But if you ask me really what would give me the most comfort, I'd say curled up with a good book. And now there are distractions with Netflix, etc., and which are fantastic. I can't even imagine that 5 years ago.
Right. Thanks for sharing thoughts on that. I'm now going to ask you about things around the PR ecosystem in India. A couple of questions on that. The first one is, what do you see are the challenges for the Indian PR business in the years to come, the next 3 or 4 years? What do you see as challenges that people should brace up for and prepare for to do things better?
I think the biggest challenge actually has happened in the last year. And handling that challenge going on forward, to me, is the most important thing. How are we going to be working? I was on a discussion the other day, and I think it was like the white elephant in the room. No one wanted to answer this question about hybrid, but this is current. Now, by the time you see this, I don't know, maybe things have changed. But I think the biggest challenge right now, frankly, is the uncertainty of it all. Where is this going to go? So, you can only be very optimistic and perhaps treat the pandemic just like a common flu. Then you get a jab every year and, you move on. And by then, health services improve and everything. So I think you have to see it in the light of that. I think the challenges of going digital, of managing content, of moving away, say, from newspapers, etc., that all has happened and we've all managed it. So I think for the future, it'll depend a lot on how we manage the present.
Fair
And
enough.
so
That's the challenges.
it doesn't sound prescient enough. But
And I'm talking of the evolution of PR as a profession, and you have seen it all in the last 15, 20, 25 years. And there are a few more years ahead of all of us in various ways. How have you seen the profession of public relations evolve from what it was in the early 2000s to now in 2021 and beyond?
Oh, well, there's a vast difference. It's become far more professional. Companies have advisory boards who advise them what to do, and you have a lot of younger people coming out of professional institutions, and part of them coming and joining a company is as rigid as it is, I'd imagine, for people who come out of the IIMs. This is no exaggeration, by the way. You have to hire the right kind of people, and I think that's the big change that has happened. The professionalization of the hiring process, the professionalization of the HR process, and the huge change that has happened to just move on from PR, but to get into other things like intelligence and data, into public affairs, into content management, into digital. So that's the massive change. It's got kind of moved so much on from plain vanilla ice cream into all these kind of amazing exotic things, which are good for revenue and which also draws in more and more people. What would be interesting is if we could pull in some artists and some more writers and authors and poets, I know they have what they have to do, but to just bring in as a part of the process and churn this amazing profession.
Right. Thank you, Nikhil. We're almost coming to the end of this interesting chat. I have one last question before we move to a rapid fire. The last question for you. What is your message to young people entering the PR profession? Hundreds of them try and aspire to be in the world of PR every year. What is your 1 or 2, 3 key messages for these youngsters in their early 20s embarking upon a career in public relations?
I mean, listen, these things are very easy to say. I mean, all have to buckle down and work hard. But this is an information game. If you're not informed, you're going to be left behind. Knowledge is power. So, and that can only happen if you improve your reading, then your writing is going to improve. And the importance of content. You are in the information business. You have to know everything. You have to know everything about everything, unless you say, okay, I'm only going to focus, say, on the economy. Then if you're going to do it, focus on the economy, then you have to make sure you're reading all the right newspapers, the Financial Times, the Economic Times, the Business Standard, the Economist, everything. To say that you have to work hard, I mean, come on, that's a given. But in this case, you have to remember knowledge is power. This is the business you are in. So, it's so exciting, the whole media scape, the whole information age. It's so exciting. So I'd say, again, buckle down and work and just be curious. You have to be hungry. You have to question. If I did not question, I would not be able to do the things I had to. I question all the time. And I try to surround myself with people who are better than me, people who can add a lot to what I can learn. I don't want to be surrounded by dummies, So,
right.
Make the right choices.
Thank you for that.
And dress nicely and look good.
Thank you. You always do. Wherever and whenever I've met you, even in your shorts and t-shirt, you look good and you look smart. And I think a lot of people should learn that from you for sure. We've come to the end of this first set of the main interview. We have a small subset, which is less than a minute or so. 10 questions in rapid fire mode to get to know Nikhil a little better. Thanks again, Nikhil, for the interesting responses to the first set of questions. I'm now going to give you 100 seconds. That's 10 seconds per question to answer in a word or two the next set of questions I'm going to ask you. Let's dive in straight to the rapid fire round. Tell us the one brand that you trust the most.
Oh, without doubt, Samsung.
Okay. Tell us the one book you would recommend to everyone you come across to read.
Anything by Tagore.
Okay. Your favorite, you said Samsung is your brand, but what is your favorite gadget? Not the brand name, but a gadget you use that is important to you.
I mean, you know what? Clearly the phone.
Okay.
It has everything going on it. I never ever thought it would take so much of practice of my life. I never thought it would give so much back. It's extraordinary.
Right. In your early days and later years, you had bosses. Tell us one boss that stands out for you as an inspiration in many ways.
You know what? I don't believe in bosses. I've never understood this boss thing. So, no.
We take that as an answer, which is absolutely fine. Tell us one of your professional role models, if there is one.
A professional role model?
Anybody from any profession, but you look up to.
Well, I learned a lot of things from the way my father conducts himself. He's a chartered accountant. And the values and the things he stands for is it's something that really influenced me and all members of my family a lot, my siblings also. So yeah, I'd say my father, Nikhil Khanna.
Fair point. Name one Indian communicator that you admire.
Nitin Mantri.
He'll be happy to hear that. Which is your favorite holiday destination? A place you love to go back to again and again?
I don't like to go back to the same place again and again.
So what is one place you really want to go to when things change and get improved in the world in a few months from now?
Oh, I have always dreamt of Tahiti, and I would love to go there one day, and I know I will, but I never go back to the same place. I don't have a favorite.
What's your favorite cuisine?
Oh, anything Oriental.
Okay. The last two in this rapid fire round. How do you describe Nikhil Khanna in 3 words?
Passionate, committed, hysterical.
Thank you. And the last one, what is the one thing that stands out for you as a learning from the last 15 months that we all have gone through?
Oh, that's a very good question. The big learning is just to be patient. And that's really it. You have to sit it out. Don't be anxious. Just be very patient, because this too shall pass. It always passes. There's always a rainbow at the end of it. There is. I firmly believe in it. I firmly believe in that.
Great. The takeout from this is this too shall pass, and things will only get better in the future.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you so much, Nikhil. It was indeed a pleasure talking to you and getting to know a few things about you that we didn't know otherwise. Thank you for making the time to talk to us. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did doing this interview with you. For those of you who are watching, that was Nikhil Khanna, the executive chairman of AVNV, a very formidable PR firm which has a public affairs arm as well, based in India with a global presence through the V network. Thank you, Nikhil, and we look forward to meeting in person when things open up.
Thank you. Just before I go, I just had one adage or a moniker which all young people should follow. It's a Latin phrase called carpe diem, which means seize the day. So I hope you all will seize the day. And Amith, thank you so much. You're so passionate. I really enjoy talking to you. So thank you for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikhil. Have a great rest of the time while we wait things to open up.
Thank you.